This is The Tea Project with your host, Gadiel and Michelle, a husband and wife duo where they will be discussing personal finance, managing a household, and so much more. Gadiel is a father, husband, a military veteran, and a lawyer. Michelle is a mother, wife, boss. Each week, they will be providing you with fresh and valuable content, so stay tuned. And now, welcome to The Tea Project.
Hey folks, welcome to another episode on Money Talks on Tea Project.
Hi everybody.
Folks, we've been out of the loop for 1 month. I believe the last time we put out an episode was 1 month ago today. The reason why, we literally just did a big move. We moved from Dade County to Pasco County literally within a month. We packed our stuff, we hired a realtor, we listed the house, we moved every single thing.
Not in that order though.
Not in that order, but we did a lot within 1 month.
Yeah.
The house is up for sale and it's getting some showings. People are interested in the house, but we'll save that for another episode. Today we're going to talk about the economy. So right now, a lot of states are opening up. And a lot of restaurants, a lot of the industries like restaurants were probably hit the hardest, right? Because no one was going out, no one was going out spending money on food, everything was being delivered, or whatever the case may be. But my point is this, the economy is opening up and slowly, yeah. But these industries like restaurants, bars, grills, are seeing a lot of activity. So if you look at Yahoo News or whichever your news source is, you'll see a lot of places up and down the coast of Florida on both sides. The sports bar and grills and the restaurants are flooded. It's like the people couldn't wait to go see other people.
You said you drove around here where we're located at and
right.
You saw.
So I went down here. We're trying to check out the area where we're staying now, and I went by a bar right off the Bay area. The bar is literally located on the Bay, and it was jam packed. And you could tell people were like social butterflies. You could tell the people were like,
masks.
Well, no, they weren't wearing any masks, but hey, look, yeah. They were happy to see other people. They needed to be around that music and people and drinking and having fun and being social. So today's episode is going to be a little different today. We're going to do a Q&A. So Michelle's the CPA. I'm just Joe Blow. I'm going to ask her questions so she can just give us some information, give us some answers on how we should handle our funds. So we'll do it in two scenarios.
Not how, but this is just how we would handle our funds.
How we would.
And you take it with a grain of salt.
Right, folks. At the end of the day, you have to do what's right for your family. You got to do what's right for you and your current circumstance, whether you're receiving unemployment or you're lucky to stay with the job throughout the whole lockdown time, or you're coming back into a job. So the first scenario, we're going to ask a series of questions based on, I've been on lockdown for 2 months. I was not receiving a check. I'm like furloughed, but my employment has just called me up and said, hey, we're open for business. We work at a sports bar and grill, and I'm lucky to have a job now. So I haven't been receiving, unemployment for 2 months. I finally go back to work. What should I be doing with my money? Well,
first of all, if you didn't have work for this time, this period of time, then either one, I don't know if you applied for unemployment or not.
Just assume that
have money saved.
Assume this scenario, they either didn't qualify, or B, they didn't receive anything until just recent. So assume for these series of questions, unemployment was not an option. So they've been without a check, income check, or any type of benefit check, and the only thing they had was savings, limited savings.
Okay. So the other thing too is were they able to pay for the rent? And is there rent behind or anything like that? So
right.
Going back to work and then receiving that first check, just like I would say with any of the other ones, is make sure that your house, utilities, your food, and your auto expenses are covered. If, say, for instance, your rent isn't covered, this is the time to catch up with it. And if you're fortunate enough to have access funds, then now it's a strategy. Depending on what your situation is, you want to either focus on savings building a savings, maybe realize that you don't have enough in your savings account, and you might have learned in this situation that this would have been a good time to have money saved up. Or you might have racked up a little bit on your credit cards, and then maybe either your credit limit has been decreased, or overall you've just incurred a higher balance on your account, and now you're having to catch up with it. So it depends on what your priorities are. If it's your credit cards, I would focus on that. If you feel a little insecure, so it's on your gut feeling. If you feel a little insecure about your emergency funds, bulk up on that, and then just look at all the look for benefits to. I would assume that you can go ahead and apply for unemployment for the previous weeks.
Yeah. So my understanding of unemployment is that it's retroactive. So if you applied, say March 13, 15, or 21st, you applied then, and you were just now approved because your state's like behind on the thousands of applications, then it's retroactive. So if you get your first check today, you're still owed the 2 months worth of checks. At some point, they have to give it to you because it's based on when you apply.
Right. And so what I would just say is that receiving all your new check or any funds that you may receive thereafter, just make sure that you are very diligent and careful about how you spend it, because yes, you get this money from the government if you were lucky enough to get it. That doesn't mean you go out and let's go shopping
right.
at our mall or something like that.
Right.
Take that as a opportunity to go ahead and say, you know what, instead of spending this money, let me go ahead and save it, because we also don't know if there's going to be a second wave, which then will most likely happen.
Right.
And then you got to prepare for that too. So we're looking at something that can last longer than a year. And at different stages, of course. It could be 2 years. It could even be 5 years. We don't know that.
So there could be another second lockdown coming our way.
It could be.
Let me ask you: should anybody be worrying about paying off debt? Say credit cards. I need to pay it off. The interest. I'm so backed up.
I think that conversation probably would be more towards once you at least have $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 saved up.
Yeah.
Obviously, depending on your way of living, but ultimately, yes, you do have to worry about paying your debt, but you need to make sure that you have your 4 walls covered first.
Right.
You can call your credit card companies and work out whether it's your interest rate, your available credit. Explain that you're going through hardship. See if you can defer the payments. If you don't have to, at least at the very minimum, stay with doing minimum payments.
Right.
If you can do balance transfers, and you can transfer all your credit cards over your balances over to another credit card that may be for anywhere between 6 to 18 months. You wouldn't have interest. That might be beneficial as well, because then that buys you some time. You only make the minimum payments, so you're not incurring interest. Although you are paying for the fee up front, you're not paying it cash, but you're paying it. It's added on to your balance.
It's usually a nominal.
It's like 3% to anywhere between 3 and 4%. I don't know that I've seen 5%, but usually it's 3 or 4.
It's not much though.
Yeah.
Not much.
The other option is to consider consolidating all your credit card debt and putting it into a loan. You have, I think it's Lending Club is one. I think the one that we use is Lending Club. If I'm not mistaken, I don't remember. So we can tell you about Lending Club, and we've used it for a long time now. I think we've had like maybe 3 or 4 loans with them. Mm-hmm. They're pretty good about. We transfer our credit cards, or they actually transfer the monies into your account, mm-hmm. and then you can pay off your credit cards yourself, or they can pay it directly if you choose to. But the other one too is Lending Tree. I haven't used that one before.
Is that part of Lending Club or no? Is it different?
It's a different one.
It's a different one. Okay, so let me ask you. Okay, so look, the economy's opening up. I'm going back to work. I'm going to pay the 4 walls, like you say. And I need to build a cushion, a good savings, because hey, the lockdown could occur. If we run into another second wave, another peak of coronavirus illnesses and death, they're going to put us on lockdown. So I need to keep in mind about that. It's not like we're back to work and everything is gravy. We need to be cautious still.
Well, one more thing is that if you are using your credit card to live off of that, and if you're going back to work, even at this point, I would say even stay away from the credit card if you can start paying for things cash. And get into the payment mode of paying your credit cards in that way, because you'll find yourself in a big problem thereafter. If you weren't in debt before and you've started to go into debt now, you definitely have to get your way out. If you were in debt before then,
right.
You would already know that anything added on top of that will only make it worse.
Right. There's a saying that the easiest way to get yourself out of a hole is to put down the shovel.
Okay, so
usually the person's the one digging their own hole.
Yeah.
But look, I would always suggest to have people create budgets, right? And even with this uncertainty of how much cash I'm going to have for how long, because they're going to shut it down again, the economy. Do you recommend that they still get on a budget based on what they're currently getting?
I think everyone should be on a budget. It doesn't matter how little income you have, or how much, or if you're rich. You know what I mean? Right.
Doesn't matter, rich or poor. Yeah. You need to be on a budget.
Right.
So what would you recommend? What would you recommend for someone that's just to start off on a budget? Like, look, I've never been on a budget. Don't even know what the definition of budget. I hear a lot of smart people talk about budgets, and every time they say it, it flies right over my head. What do you say to them?
Well, it's just a tracking of all the money that you're bringing in every month, and then putting a list together of all the expenses that you've incurred in the past. And then it's at that point you're kind of analyzing two sides of it. Number one, on the income side, you're saying, okay, is my income fixed? If it is, then I know I can't really do much there except maybe do side hustles.
Right.
If it's variable, then look for ways of maybe doing overtime, or whether, let's say, you're getting paid on commission, look for creative ways to increase that, maybe in sales or whatever that is. And then the second piece is your expenses, is jotting down all your expenses, everything from your student loans, your mortgage, your food, going out, restaurants, shopping, electronics, anything. I mean, everything and anything that you've spent. You can just pull out your bank account or your credit card statement, and you'll look and see what you've spent. Usually nowadays, a lot of these credit card companies and bank will do little graphs and charts, and they'll put their own category to whatever the expense is. You might have to go in there and recategorize them. But if you wanted to get a clear picture of what you're spending, that's the place to go.
You know what? That is a great point, and I just thought of something. People who don't budget, right? They kind of just spend, and they kind of ballpark their balance, right? They get their paycheck.
You can put limits on it.
Well, they get their paycheck. Say they get paid on a Friday, and they already, they're already paying for some expenses and some discretionary stuff on Amazon, but they're kind of winging the balance. They said, X, I got $2,000 is paycheck, and I got to spend it on these three things. I'm left with $500. They're really winging it in their own mind. They're not writing it down. Those folks, I think, are not really in tune. They have no real relationship with their money. In a good way, like you just mentioned, to know your habits of spending is to analyze your credit card statement or your bank statement. And when you really analyze, you'll see, wow, I can't believe I spent $500 in 2 weeks in restaurants. That is absurd. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They can really see. And it may be an eye-opening experience for them to see where their money goes.
So, like for us, when it comes to our finances, I check them every.
She does, folks. She's like
other day, I think.
She's like religious with it, folks. She's
day.
Checking it every day. She has spreadsheets, tabs, functions. But to be honest, you kind of have to have that relationship with your money to know where it's coming, where it's going, how much is here, how much is there, how much do I have to spend on the house or investment.
Right, but I think a lot of it is, it's not just analyzing. It's not just looking at, okay, this is how much we've spent. Well, what do we do beyond that? Like, what is the
well, you got to have a plan.
The strategy to execute on whatever the next plan is.
So you're saying it's not enough to look at it. You need to have a plan.
Correct. You need to have a plan, and then you need to execute on it, and then you need to review it, and then say, okay, well, how can I tweak it a little bit more? You know, and in my brain, I'm like constantly thinking like, okay, if we had, you know, we have this money coming in, potentially coming in, should I say, where the government may potentially give us funds. And I'm already thinking like, okay, what do we do with that money? What is the best way to do it? Definitely, I would always X out the part of spending it. Right. I would never say to spend.
You would save to save or save to invest?
Right. So the second level would be to save. So if we didn't have an emergency fund, that would be the next place to go to. But then if you have a comfortable savings account or savings balance, then it would be save to invest. Whether it is in real estate or in the market, whatever it is that you know how to invest in, or you may know someone who can guide you through it.
Or you may have a professional who you
or just read up on books or read books on it. So just constantly be thinking about, okay, well, how do I make more money, or how do I reduce our expenses? How do I use the money that's coming in this coming month, or you know, whatever the case is.
Right.
I mean, even now when we're thinking about selling our house, we already have a plan for where that money is going to go to, and I can already say right now that it probably will not go as a down payment to our house, to our next home. It'll probably go to rental properties. So just thinking ahead, I think.
Right. You have to think ahead.
Yeah.
If you think the now, you're behind.
Yeah.
If you don't have a future plan, you're behind.
Yeah.
So speaking of moving, look, in one of our podcast episodes, we talked about making additional income, and one of them was selling things. So you mentioned the move. We moved, but within the process of moving, or before we moved, we actually sold quite a few items, household items, and we made some money.
And I think the goal right now is probably for us to continue going to our storage unit and pulling stuff out from there that we can potentially sell locally through LetGo app and through Facebook, because that's what we found to be the easiest.
And most successful too.
Yeah, and it's an easy cash transaction. You're done, and somebody comes to pick it up, and you're done.
Right. And look, these are items that you're not going to use, folks.
Yeah.
These are just things that you have that they're really just taking up space, and you can part ways and not miss it.
Yeah.
So we use LetGo, we use Facebook. We made quite a good some money there, but that's one way for you guys. It's not a side hustle, but it's money that you can generate easily without leaving your house, folks. So,
all right. So you said you were going to ask me on a second person.
Second scenario. Okay. So this is the first one was based on somebody not working, like a furlough, and boom, they're back to work. What should they do with their money? What about somebody who's fortunate enough to continue, who was on lockdown but worked remotely, or was able to go back to what about somebody who worked remotely or who was never laid off? They continued working, and even though the economy is opening up, they still have a job. So what about them? What should they do with their money?
Well, they're a little bit more fortunate than the first person is, because nothing's really changed for them. They've been, consistently bringing in income into the household. So just maintaining their budget, reducing their discretionary expenses, and then just looking for, while you're at home and you're doing quarantine or you're being quarantined, this is your chance to work on those side hustles, work on what do I do to reinvent myself or whatever, anything to bring extra income. Take advantage of the situation, to better position yourself.
That's a good point. So the folks who had been working for the last 2 months and will continue to work, you're saying, listen, don't stop there. What else can you do? Right? What else can you do to generate more income?
Right. I mean, and we have an episode that talks about, like, I think 13 different
additional ways to make more money.
Yeah, you can listen to that.
So you're saying these folks, look, don't be it's look, be fortunate and thankful and blessed that you had a job and you continue to have a job, but why stop there?
Right, occupy the time, the extra time that you do have at home. It may be a little bit hard even for us that we have our kids
Homeschooling, yeah, we got those challenges
and everything,
still.
but you got to figure out a way to, whether that means let me wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning while they're still sleeping and work on this. Maybe you need to chunk out your days, your hours, so that you can say, okay, out of the 8 hours that I have to put into work, then I'll do 3 hours here, 3 hours there, or maybe you spread it out over 6 or 7 days, 6 days maybe, so that you can take a day off. And then the rest of the extra hours, allocate them to, doing a side business for yourself, anything, whatever it is.
Right.
If you're on social media or you're consuming any kind of media or whatsoever, just look for the alternative. So instead of looking for entertainment, look for something that's going to build upon your knowledge. If you're looking for you're looking at just in general, if you're looking for entertainment, switch it over to something.
I got you. So
reading books, you like reading nonfiction, not nonfiction, you like reading fiction,
fantasy,
switch over to nonfiction, because that's only investing in yourself, and that's your biggest asset.
100%. Let me ask you this though. So the folks still working and still continue to work, should they be paying off all their debt, knowing that the economy may shut down and they may get affected? We don't know. They may.
But that's why there is no like a specific
plan,
formula plan or whatever that you can do, because every person is different, every household is different.
Should they still focus on the four walls?
Absolutely. And then there's options for you to call your mortgage company.
Okay, so you're saying, and so on top of the four walls, those folks should be doing what? Knowing there may be a second closing.
Right, but if they're still at work, like if they're still working from home, then really nothing changes. You have to just continue. You're almost like having just be extra careful every single week. Always relook at your expenses. Keep track of your debt balances so that it doesn't creep up on you. At this point, if you are working consistently, there's no reason why your debt should increase. You're not driving. You're not like, even for us, we are considering. I hope we're gonna say yes to.
Yeah, of course.
We're gonna be turning in one of our cars, because at this point, since I'm working from home, I really don't need to be out and about. And if so, we would coordinate amongst ourselves so that we would just be able to downsize to one car.
Right.
One of our cars is already paid off. The other one's leased. Turn it in and call it a day.
Right. See, that helps, because that's our circumstances lend itself to one vehicle.
Right.
So if you're in that same scenario, in that same situation where you really don't need that second car, you're paying the insurance on it, the monthly payment on it. But if you're not there, you don't need to be paying that second payment. Consider downsizing to one and figure out.
The interesting thing is that you and I started with sharing one car for years. Until we no longer could have, we needed two cars, and I think that was back in Michigan. And even then, you ended up selling the second car, came back down with just one car.
Yeah.
You ended up buying the car from my dad.
Yeah.
And then we did need two cars at that point. Living in Miami, you kind of need it.
Yeah.
But then there came a point where it really wasn't necessary anymore, obviously, because we were doing quarantine, and we're like, why do we need two cars? We all go out as a family anyways, or we go out as individually, and that's it.
Well, Michelle, I think you've given us good information. Either way, it sounds like, based on what I'm hearing from you, is that the folks still need to consider their four walls as the main focus. Save if they don't have a savings, and then if they do, then save to invest. Don't save to spend. Don't save to save. Save with the thing
is that with saving to save, you almost can't just say, hey, I'm gonna save X amount of money, but then for what are you gonna save it for?
Right.
Because then you're just gonna be like, you're not gonna really have an end goal, and you're just gonna consistently always say, well, I have $5,000 in my saving, or I have $2,000 in my saving. Let me just go out and buy a car. well, was that money decided for the car?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Did you start
have
saving with that in
Right.
mind, or you just save and, oh, now I have money, let me just go spend it?
Right. So whether it's opening up
interesting.
multiple savings accounts, I know Ali does where they call them, I think, buckets. You can open one savings account and then you have multiple buckets, and in there you can start splitting money out. You know, if you wanted to save for a car, save for, you know, what they call sinking funds. I think we did a podcast on that
We did an
earlier.
episode on sinking funds.
You know, if you have to pay for your property taxes, for us, we actually don't pay our property taxes through our mortgage company. We decided last year that we would, you know, escrow that money ourselves. So we opened up a savings account for that. We pay monthly to it, you know, approximately to what the monthly amount would have been had it been through the mortgage company. But just, it's like going back to the save to save, you have to make sure that you assign those dollars to something, because if you don't, it's almost like having you know, money just sitting there, and you're like, oh, well, let me just grab it, and the next thing you know, you don't have the money there anymore.
Right. Look, interesting observation I'm making now. So you're basically describing two types of persons. One who's just saving to save, really no plan, no goal in mind with that savings account. Those, what it sounds like, those folks are more likely to blow it on something that's not really worth it.
Or maybe not even make it to what their goal was.
No, but if they have no goal.
You can just say, okay, I want to save $10,000. Well,
oh, I see what you're saying.
You got to take two steps. How much and for what?
Right. Saving to save without having a goal, you're most likely to spend it on something probably not worth spending. But if you start saving with an end goal, every 10% of my check or whatever it is goes into the savings account. I'm going to save it on to buy this or to purchase that or invest in this. You're most likely to reach it and then do what you said you're going to do when you started off saving.
And then the other piece of it is, so we're talking about now is the saving to save, but the saving to invest can be something as simple as, well, let me save $100, not save $100, but, or let me set us $100 to go into a what's it called, an investment account, an investment account. Where it's a systematic $100, and then you go into your investment account, and you'll have to do a little bit of reading and educating and just getting information about what stocks to buy, looking at index funds, looking at all these kinds of things and playing with it. It's almost like you got play money every month.
Right.
And then you start to learn how to invest that money. But at least you know that every month you're putting in $100. By the time you see, you have $1,200. If either you've lost some of it or you've gained some of it, but you will not lose any more than what you've put in.
Right. Okay.
So,
well, folks, if you like what you heard on this episode, please let us know in the comments section, or if there's something that you would like us to discuss, please let us know as well in the comments section. Give us a like, please follow, subscribe, and we'll talk to you next time. Stay safe.
until next time.
God bless.